Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Pivot, and I'm your host, Dr. Talat. In today's program, we are discussing about politics of Bharatiya Janata Party, which is commonly known as BJP, and Kashmir. So, viewers, when we talk of BJP, we know that it's a kind of political party which has very hardcore stance on various issues in politics of India. It had a stance with regards to Kashmir. And if we just go through events of last two days, we have come to know that since they promised to act on Kashmir, and they did it. So how politics of BJP evolved over a period of time, and how are they different from other political parties in India, and how BJP's politics will contribute to future happenings that we see in the region, it is very important to carry out an appraisal of these all facets. So to discuss BJP's politics and Kashmir with regard to the recent developments, we have invited in our studio today an eminent scholar, Yasser Masood, who is international relation expert and has extensively written in various newspapers nationally and internationally. Welcome, Yasser.
Thank you very much.
Yasser, when we discuss about politics of BJP, I would like you to give a brief rundown of how this party was formed and how their ideology has evolved over a period of time and how they have become what they are today.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think it's a very important question in the context, because there are a lot of people, they actually don't understand the real ideology of the BJP and also their political stance, their manifesto, and what were the core ideas of forming this political wing of RSS. Now, it is also important to unearth the ideology of RSS, that what were the reasons that RSS came into being. In 19th century, there was a dire need where the Hindu nationalists, they thought that there has to have a party which represents them in terms of reviving the whole Hindu Rashtra or the whole Hindu nation. Now, it did not only restrict to that. They also wanted to revive and rejuvenate the whole concept of the spirit of the Hindu nation into the ideology, because there were a lot of other ideologies which were working at that time, for example, like Khilafat movement and other into the commotion of the independence movement. Now, what happened after that? Especially, I would like to take you back to the point of 1920s onward, when this whole concept was politicized. And Savarkar was the first name who politicized, and he wrote a book also which named as Hindutva. So there was a transition from this whole concept into a political kind of Hinduism. In other words, we call it Hindutva. So basically, this was the reason that RSS came into being, and then there were a lot of offshoots of RSS. For example, for that matter, the current BJP that also came into being. Their ancestry belongs to Sangh Parivar as well. Now they have a different ideology from the rest of the independence movement which was carried on at that point of time, even in those years before the partition. But this was basically inspired, RSS was inspired by the fascist organization like the Hitler movement. It came into being because of that. And straight away, their core belief was to save the Hindu nation. But later on, when we see that a more kind of a hardcore of elements were embedded and included into BJP's manifesto, this BJP has actually waited for so many decades so that they come into power. Now, it is also important to understand that these are those people, for example, like Nathuram Godse was a person who murdered Gandhi. So basically, this was the extreme kind of, right-winged or sort of an anti-minority or anti-Muslims especially, kind of belief they carried on over the years. Their manifesto in black and white, if I explain, is that they want to focus on the greater India. So whoever comes or lives in that state or in that periphery of India, according to them, is a Hindu, regardless of its religion, creed, color, and ancestry. So this is the worst form of the BJP.
Yasser, we will discuss that manifesto. Since I have a question separately for the manifesto, I would just like you to explain the Hindu nationalism. You see, when we had most of the time that we saw Congress ruling India, so Hindutva, which is a Hindu nationalism concept, a phrase which is actually referred to with regards to Hindu nationalism. So it didn't come to anybody's, or it didn't gain any publicity in the intellectual circles. So what is Hindutva, and is it a core concept of BJP, or Indian state is also having this concept as Hindu nationalism, or explains Hindu nationalism?
Actually, this is a prevailing kind of political ideology which has got it strong foothold over the years, and there is a reason behind it. If we see in other parts of the world, for example, like I would like to give you example of Mr. Netanyahu in Israel, I would like to give you example of President Donald Trump. So unfortunately, in today's politics, this kind of right-winged politicians, where they have come at the hem of affairs. So these are the most, I would call them that the democratic dangers for the society and for the region as well. Now, coming back to your question that what is Hindu nationalism and how much it has been applauded or appreciated or endorsed or accepted by the, in India, because we know that it's a pluralistic society. We know that it's a liberal society. There are definitely sane voices which are, they have been raising their slogans against such kind of, Hindu nationalism or such kind of policies, because the true face of India is that they have to accommodate the other majorities and minorities which are living in India, because this is part of their constitution. But they have ripped apart the constitutional mandate of India, especially when BJP came into power. Hindu nationalism, in terms of, to some extent, if there are Hindu nationalism are, if they are being misrepresented or there are any fears to their identity, they have every legitimate right to save their identity. But it's not that case. I can give you example like, especially on the garb of Hindu nationalism, what is being done. For example, like Prime Minister Modi, he is labeled as the butcher of Gujarat. The same person was banned to go to the West, especially after, carnage of Gujarat. The current Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, he has also been called the butcher because he had, pogrom. He has arranged pogroms in different parts of India, where they are forcibly turning Muslims to accept a religion like Hinduism. So, if under the ambit of Hindu nationalism, if such kind of policies are being emanated from India, this is definitely a bad omen, not only for India, but for the entire region.
Yes, I will continue from here. I'm asked to have a break. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. Yasser, when we discuss Hinduism, or Hindutva, so, and India, we've seen that India has been claiming that they're a secular country where all minorities have equal rights, and this is country, multi-ethnic country, which has, opportunities for all kind of people, and since it's a big democracy. So, when we talk of Hinduism or Hindutva that you explained, we have a feeling that Hindutva is a concept contrary to secularism. Is that right?
Absolutely, you're spot on. This is completely the other way around, what we call secularism, because you see, Hinduism is different than Hindutva. Hinduism, in other words, we call that it's a Hindu religion. And as far as Hindu religion is concerned, it has always been promoting peace and prosperity. These are the prominent, they have been advocating this kind of stance because this is part of their religion. But Hindutva is completely different. Hindutva is the extreme form of Hinduism. It's a political, sort of interpretation of Hinduism, where they have gone, few steps ahead in terms of hatred, in terms of how to subjugate the basic rights of the minorities which are living in India. When we talk about minorities, there are Sikhs, there are Jains, there are Muslims, there are other minorities, and they have been living peacefully in India for centuries. But since the inception of the BJP or the RSS or other this kind of right-wing fascist organizations which have taken its birth, the situation has gone from bad to worse. Now, when we see that over the years, they have been, promoting this kind of, hardcore ideologies, this kind of ideologies they have been injecting into the minds of the masses. To some extent, they have succeeded, because there is still, I believe, that there is a few chunk of society who would accept or who would, endorse this kind of policies which are going against the Indian constitution itself, because India claims and calls itself to be the champion of democracy, as the biggest democracy of the world, although democracy is, it has its inception from the West. They have borrowed the concept of democracy from the West, although they call themselves as now the champion of democracy. I think it's a kind of India which we see now, or which is at the face of the entire world. It's a different India which used to be, few years back. This kind of new India is giving a kind of impression to the entire world and to the region that they are, up against a region which is trying to promote peace and prosperity in the region. And on the other side, India is becoming a regional thorn, which is putting rolling stones to, while promoting peace and prosperity.
Right. Just a supplementary question, a supplementary point to what you have already explained in detail. So when you call India as a big democracy, and we say they are now asserting as a Hindutva, the concept of Hindutva, so Hindutva is also contrary to democracy.
Absolutely. Hindutva is by no means, it can be assumed as a concept which is acceptable to even the Indian masses. Because even the last, when we say that in 2014, this was the first time in Indian history that one party came into power. And secondly, contrary to the fact that in the past there were like coalition governments, but one majority came into power in 2014, and that was only 31%, if I'm not wrong, or maybe just 30% above. So it means that at the edge of, political system, they got their majority. Even when we see this time, they have even got a better position. Now, in the meantime, we have, observed that there are savvy voices which have been talking against Indian policies, that where they are leading the face of India in terms of the global canvas. But when we see now that there is, we see that even the media is controlled, even when we see the military is controlled by the government, and when you say that this concept of Hindutva, which is not secular, obviously it is not secular, and obviously it is not acceptable to the general masses. But unfortunately, they are at the helm of affairs now, and they are, against some kind of policies which definitely is threat to the entire region in terms of their belief that they want to change the demography of the region, and they want to keep those states, the neighboring states, as their subordinating states, which India has been doing for years now. And also they consider Pakistan to, to toe the line what India thinks, which is obviously not acceptable to Pakistan. So I think India has